Go with Jimmy Fallon. We are fired up to talk to this next guest, superstar congressional representative from the 17th District down in Florida, Representative Greg Steube, back on the show. Hey, man.
Hey, how are you?
Well, I got to ask you a quick question before we get into the nuts and bolts. Wesley Hunt, who is running for Congress out in Texas. Have you ran into Wesley on the trail yet by any chance?
I have not met him, no.
Oh, well, Wesley is talking a big fashion game about you and Byron Donalds. I told him how Donalds ranks you number one. Yeah, I said Byron ranks you number one, says he has the most swag. But Wesley Hunt says he takes both of you guys. Are you about to campaign against Wesley Hunt with that kind of slander?
Well, I any more Republicans we can get in Congress, I'm all for it. So we can have that debate on the floor. Let the American people decide who are the best dressed.
Well, yeah, you know what? You're right. It's probably a good time to circle the wagons because they're giving away college loan money. And has there ever been a bigger scam in your adult life than this?
It's crazy. I mean, like I had to pay and use student loans for law school. Mm-hmm. I went into the military. The military didn't pay my loans back. If I would have re-upped for an additional 4, I did 4.5 years active duty. If I'd have re-upped for an additional 4, they were going to pay half my student loans. And I was like, no, I've served my time. I want to go back. And I ended up running for office about 6 months after I got out of active duty to the state legislature. Mm-hmm. I mean, and now they're just, here you go. Here's $10,000. Here's $20,000 if you're on a Pell Grant. And, it took me till I was in my 40s. My goal was to hit 40 and have my student loans paid off. Mm-hmm. And I think the majority of Americans didn't go to college, and that's a fact. I looked it up just to make sure before I said it. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to take $2,000 an American. This is going to cost every American $2,000, mm-hmm. and we're going to give that money to the minority of America who went to college to get, like a women's study degree or whatever it was that they may not even be using now. And it's just not it's just not what the American people support. And it's another giveaway right before an election because the Democrats can't help themselves. All right, who can we give money away to today that will then vote for us in the midterms?
It so looks that way. We're talking to Representative Greg Steube. It does. It just looks like they're trying to buy votes because it's a scam. I mean, there's no other way to slice it. The people who didn't take out the loans getting the bill for the people who did is a scam. And there's also just a legality issue because this is contract law. And again, the debt isn't being forgiven. I mean, that's the bigger scam is it's not being forgiven. They're just passing it on to us. But, isn't there talk that this hurts inflation too?
There is so many legal issues here to flush out. We could spend the remainder of your show talking about the legal issues, the constitutional issues, where you have the executive branch waiving what could be $800 billion. Now, right now, the estimate is between $400 and $600 billion, $500 billion mm-hmm. worth of student loan debt that Congress didn't allow for to be forgiven. Yeah. This should be an act of Congress because Congress controls the purse strings, and you have the executive doing it. Mm-hmm. And I actually think another reason why they're doing it before the midterms and before Republicans take the majority back is because Congress could file a lawsuit in the separations of power issue, but Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer aren't going to do that to Joe Biden. Yep. So they want to try to give away money before they can, and then you have the contract issues, mm-hmm. and then you have all of the spending issues, the constitutional issues, the separation of powers issues. I will be shocked if in 6 months it hasn't been challenged and hasn't been ruled unconstitutional by the current U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's a great point because you know what, I was saying this earlier. I don't think they care if they ever get to give this money away. I just think they want the credit for trying between now and the midterms. But I think it's a dumb move by them because I think most Americans, again, look at the fundamental unfairness and just think it's terrible. But you know what the Democrats remind me of? Both married guys, but I remember in my single life, there was always that friend who, wanted to send a round of drinks over to some girl at the bar, but they never had their wallet. Like every good Democratic idea that they think is good, they never want to chip in for. It's always us that are paying for the drinks, man.
Yeah, it's the people pulling the cart that are paying for the drinks, and pretty soon there's not going to be enough people pulling the cart because everybody's going to be in the cart, and it's going to be what we're facing in America because you're going to only have a couple people pulling the cart with the rest of the country sitting in the cart wanting to be pulled. It
is so true, man. It's a society of takers, man. It's scary stuff. And what I'm fascinated by is, The dueling politics in play here is that the Democrats have internally, they've made a calculation that between now and the midterms, they're just going to tell call Republican voters fascists and everything in between. But it's so bizarre to me to see this strategy in play. Have you ever in all your life in politics seen anyone go after the voters? Like, I've heard of candidates attacking candidates, but isn't this a first for you in terms of attacking voters?
Ever since I've been in Congress and Speaker Pelosi's been the Speaker of the House, the vitriol towards the right, and I'm not just talking like conservatives. I'm just talking any person that's a Republican. I mean, Nancy Pelosi called us on national TV. If you're a Republican congressman, you're a national security threat. You're a domestic terrorist was the exact word that she used. So to use that type of language is very significant, and you're alienating half of the country, and they just don't care. They don't care that they're alienating half the country. I think there's probably a part of them that know that there's no way that they win in November, so they're going to try to just attack as many people as they can, thinking that people will buy their BS from, we're racist, we're intolerant of you name it. And people won't either vote for us or go to vote or otherwise. And they've always used that as an attack. If they can't beat you on the facts or the law, they resort to name calling. They've always done that.
Yeah, like that is the MO here for sure. We're talking to Representative Greg Steube from the 17th Congressional District of Florida. And you know what's funny is, like, when you see that they have internally decided that this is the message, from here to the midterms, Republicans are fascists. If they've adopted this messaging, and Biden himself is saying it on the campaign trail, doesn't it make it even harder to believe the White House had nothing to do with the FBI raid at Mar-a-Lago?
There is absolutely no way that they were not involved. And we know from some of the whistleblower information that John Solomon got in some documents that months ago, I think it was like February or March, the White House, Joe Biden himself, did away with Trump's ability to use executive privilege as it related to some of these documents. So they knew way back then in February, March, whenever those documents whenever the Biden administration himself removed executive privilege and Trump's ability to exert it on those documents, that set up the stage for the FBI to do what they've done. There's no way that they were not involved. Of course they're going to deny it, just like they deny all the other things that they deny that they were involved with, like the FBI had nothing to do with Russia collusion, like Hunter Biden's laptop is Russian disinformation. And then when it comes out that Hunter Biden's laptop is 100% true, then you just hear crickets. There's no talk about it, and they just bury it. Facebook buries it, Twitter buries it, mainstream media doesn't talk about it, thinking about the American people just won't. Okay, well, if we don't talk about it, they won't talk about it.
Yeah, it's nuts, because like Mark Zuckerberg flat out admitted that the FBI basically told them, yeah, this story's no good, shut it down. And when you look at polling, that tells you, 10% of Biden voters would have switched their vote if they knew the story. You're just talking about a level of pass interference, like to put it in football games, that really did kind of swing the game, without getting too far into the weeds.
It was like 18.
Yeah.
It was like 18% of people who would have changed their vote, which absolutely would have changed the outcome of the election. And you had Mark Zuckerberg admit that they violated the First Amendment, and he doesn't care because they have liability protection. One of the things that I've worked on in Congress, and when we take the majority back, that's going to change. These guys are going to be held accountable legally for violating your constitutional rights. But if you watch and listen to the response from the FBI, they didn't deny that they had the conversation. They just kind of recalibrated what the conversation was. Oh, we just gave them some general information to be aware of disinformation. So they admitted that they had the conversation with Facebook, admitted that they told them that it was Russian disinformation, and we're in the process. I think we've sent the letter out. If not, we're going to this week to find out exactly who these agents were that had these conversations with the executives at Facebook. And when we take the majority back, we're going to be subpoenaing these individuals in to ask them very difficult questions on the record. Because if you interfere with elections in the manner in which they clearly admitted that they were, that's a violation of the United States law. And as an FBI agent, you could go to prison for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and
we're going to flush all that out when we take the majority.
Yeah, no, I hope so, man, because you really think about it. They're out there yelling and screaming every day about Republicans ruining democracy. I'm like, dude, you guys are actually, like, fixing the game. I mean, it's dangerous stuff, man. So you definitely got your work cut out for you. And if you run into Wesley Hunt, let me know, man, because listen, I have you in the top two. Hunt is willing to demote you to third, dude. I don't know. It's controversial. He had nothing.
Hit a home run at a Nats Park, then he can come and talk.
Yeah. Wesley Hunt, the gauntlet has been thrown down. And no, believe me, he talked a lot of smack, and he loves you, and he loves Byron Donalds. He wanted credit. He just said his wardrobe is the real deal and bloppity boo. So I'm not trying to start trouble per se. I just wanted to make sure you knew that we stood up for you on the show is the point. I don't want to run into you and have a problem. You know what I'm saying, Stubby? That's all.
I got you.
I'm looking out for me.
I appreciate that.
But great work, and I'll tell Hunt to start taking BP, and we'll talk soon. All right, brother?
Yeah.
Be well, my man.
All right.
There he goes, the great Greg Stubbe from the 17th Congressional District of Florida. Wesley Hunt, if you're listening, and you might be, I know you tweeted a lot about the show. Stubbe is still the only person in the history of this country to hit a home run at the congressional baseball game out of a major league park. He hit it at Nats Park. He didn't hit it with like the moved-in wall like it was the Bad News Bears. He hit a real home run. And that's not nothing. As guys like Wesley Hunt are running for office telling us they're the best-dressed guys. I mean, it's a big talk, Wesley Hunt. I'm just telling you and your PR people that these guys care about this stuff. I'm trying to keep the party united. We can't have a fashion police get in a use of excessive force against one of the members of society. But you talk about excessive force because the FBI, what they did, okay, we'll get into this a little bit.